I'm going to show you how you remove your needle plate, feed dogs, and your entire hook assembly from your Singer Featherweight. Today we're going to take off the needle plate, the feed dogs, and the hook from our Featherweight. This series is taking you through the full restoration process of a Singer Featherweight. And we've removed a lot from the machine already, and today we're going to take these parts off. So this is your needle plate, and it may look different than this one, just depending on how old your machine is. This one is after they added these little numbers, seam guides really, or it could be replaced. That's always a possibility as well. So we have two screws that we want to remove. This one here and this one here, and that's going to allow us to take this needle plate off. You need to make sure when you're removing these screws that you do not damage the heads. And I know I say that a lot, but here your fabric's going to slide over these as you sew, so you really do not want to damage them. So this one's not as hard to get to because you don't have a lot of stuff in your way, and they are just left to loosen. So you can normally get just a regular screwdriver in there and get the screw out. And once you get it started, it should just twist out with your fingers. That's one of them. This one is a little bit trickier. And if you have one of these little tiny screwdrivers that are designed to work in low clearance situations, that's really where you want to start. Because now I can actually get in there, have my bit level inside the head of the screw, and loosen it. And this is a cool one from my friend Bob Fowler. And I had one before he sent me this one. And now I use this one all the time. I just like it better. Being able to twist this little top like this, so cool. Once we get the screw started, it should just spin out just like the other one. So these two screws, and they look pretty good actually. This one, it's mostly just dirty. Doesn't feel too rough or anything, so I'm glad they're in good shape. Now this needle plate should just lift right off. And I want to make sure you can see this. Just like that. And so I'm looking on this needle plate because I'm curious if it is a Singer part or if it was aftermarket. And it looks old, but I'm not seeing any of the part numbers that would normally be stamped on it. So I'll have to check that out. But we can just set this aside. And we're still going to need our handy little screwdriver to get to these next two screws. This piece right here for the feed dog system, we want to get out so we can clean these teeth a little bit better, and we can get down underneath and clean out all of the lint that's built up. And these are also left to loosen. They are super soft, and I know I keep saying that about the screws, but these are softer than a lot of them on the machine. So just be careful. Spray with oil if you can't get them to free up. There we go. They just twist out. See, handy, handy little screwdriver. It's a Craftsman, 1/4 inch. I have two screws that hold the actual feed dogs down in. And here's the feed dog. And this is why you want to take it out. And actually, this isn't really that bad. Truly, I've seen way worse. But all this stuff just gets in the way. We don't want that while we're sewing. So we'll set that aside. Now we can really clearly see our hook assembly as well. And that's what we're going to take off next. But first, we'll bag up all these parts, your needle plate, the two screws for holding your needle plate on, and some people call this the throat plate too. So I should mention that. 2 screws for the actual feed dogs. Put them all together. Where we want to go next is to take this hook assembly off. What I'm going to recommend is that you flip this machine over and you're going to be looking at the underside of the machine. Okay, so here is where we are working, and I'm turning my hand wheel, which is how I can get all of this to spin. But something very interesting that I found once I flipped this over is that I'm missing a set screw. So this hook assembly is stuck to this shaft right here that goes all the way through with 2 set screws. Here is one, but when I spin this around, I can see I am missing the other one. So I have to make a note to self to order that part. So normally we would remove this one that's missing and this one. So you just need a screwdriver, obviously. I'm going to turn this way for just a minute so my hands don't block the camera. I know you don't want to focus on my fingers all the time. And we'll see. Yeah, there it goes. Just gonna spin this out. Almost got it. Okay, here you go. So both of the set screws that you hopefully are going to take out on your machine look the same. All right, there isn't one that goes in one hole, one that goes in the other. They both work in each of the holes on the hook assembly. So you don't need to worry about remembering which one is which, for which hole on the hook assembly. So hopefully you're setting 2 of these aside. Now you should be able to just grab your hook assembly gently and take it right off the end of the stud. And here is your hook assembly. And guess what? We're going to take this apart because I can't clean this the way it is. It wouldn't do me any good to try to clean this when I'm missing so much that's in between these 2 parts here and so on. So let's take that apart real quick so it's ready to clean. So my sad, lonely little set screw is here. So you will need smaller screwdrivers when you work on your hook assembly. So even smaller than this one I'm going to use. But the first part we want to take off is this thread guard. And there's one screw right here, and I normally just put my screwdriver in and it should free up. And sometimes once you get this little screw out, and make sure you're using a metal dish or something to keep track of these, this should just slide right off the back of the hook assembly. And what people will find in here a lot of times is a lot of thread. When you hear about thread jams on your hook assembly, it's normally all in here. So let's look at this part for just a minute. It should have like this little bumped out portion. But if you can see on this one, do you see these grooves that are sort of run into the thread guard? We're going to sand those down. They're actually really rough when I run my fingers over them, and we don't want that. And here especially, these are probably from needle strikes when the hook was spinning around and the needle was coming down. Maybe there was a bent needle someone was sewing with. There could have been a lot of different issues, but we're going to clean this up and we're going to smooth it out. So if thread goes past, it just glides right past. It doesn't catch on anything that's sharp or rough. So let's set that aside. Don't lose your little tiny screw. Flip this over. The next thing we want to do is remove this little screw here. This is a little jib arm that's just going to wing out once we take this screw out. So little tiny screwdriver in the slot. Be careful. You're going to be grabbing your hook. Some of these points can be very sharp, so don't stab yourself. Left to loosen. This is the smallest screw that you'll be dealing with on the whole machine. Don't lose it. I almost lost it. Look at that. Little tiny guy. I don't know what that is, but keep track of that. Now, this little jib arm, and it might be a little bit stiff because there's probably a lot of oil, so be careful when you're prying this apart, but it should just sort of pull out, and it may take a little bit. Gently. There we go. See how that swung out? Now I can take this bobbin case base and it should just come out, and you may have to spin it a little bit. Should come out from the hook assembly. Now you've taken this apart enough that you can clean everything and put it back together, and it will spin so smoothly when you're done. So let's bag these up. We don't want to lose them. My main hook assembly, this little bobbin case base, thread guard, one set screw, but you'll have two of these, and two tiny little screws that go on the hook assembly when we put it all back together. Don't lose them. Next, we are going to talk about removing the stitch regulator here and also the hand wheel of the machine. So it's coming along very nicely. See you again real soon. Bye.